Before we get started, if you find this information valuable, do us a huge favor and subscribe to Veterinarian News. And hey, don't forget to like and comment. It really helps us reach more people. All right, let's open up a fascinating case file on one of the most common and seriously misunderstood infections out there, one that connects both animals and people. We are talking, of course, about ringworm. So, first things first, let's talk about that name, because honestly, it's totally misleading. You hear ringworm, and what do you picture? Probably some kind of gross little worm burrowing under the skin, right? Well, the reality is something else entirely. That's right. Ringworm has absolutely nothing to do with worms. Not a single thing. It's actually a fungal infection caused by a group of germs called dermatophytes. Think of these guys as tiny fungi that have evolved to live on and basically snack on the outer layers of skin, hair, and nails on both us and our animals. Now let's get to know the main suspects in this investigation. We're going to profile the fungi that are responsible for these zoonotic infections, the ones that can jump from animals to people. And each one has its favorite hideouts and its favorite accomplices. So, our number one most wanted, the one we see most often, is Microsporum canis. Now with a name like canis, you'd probably think it's all about dogs, wouldn't you? Well, here's the twist. The data tells a completely different story. It turns out that cats, both our pets and strays, are the main reservoir for this fungus. We're talking about 80% of the time. They are, without a doubt, the primary carriers. In a cat, you'll often see those classic signs: itchy, red spots, maybe some hair loss, and flaky skin. But here's where it gets serious. In rare cases, especially with long-haired cats like Persians, this fungus can actually invade deeper tissues, creating these hard nodules. And that's a whole other ballgame. It's way harder to treat and often needs surgery on top of medication. Okay, let's move on to our next suspect, Trichophyton verrucosum. This one isn't hanging out in your living room. No, this guy's territory is out in the fields and on the farm. And yeah, this chart just says it all, doesn't it? The link between this fungus and livestock is incredibly strong. Over 90% of human cases are traced right back to cattle, especially young calves. This makes it a really serious occupational hazard for farmers, farmhands, and veterinarians. And you can see why the risk is so high for people who work with these animals. The fungus causes these really distinct, thick, crusty lesions, usually on the animal's head and neck. And those lesions are just shedding fungal spores everywhere. All it takes is some direct contact during handling, and the infection can be passed on. All right, our final profile isn't just one fungus, but a whole diverse family of them called the Trichophyton mentagrophytes complex. And this group hangs out with a surprising range of animals, including some really popular exotic pets. Now, this is where it gets super specific and interesting. There's one variety in this family that is found almost exclusively on hedgehogs. Yep. Others are more common in animals like rabbits or rodents, like guinea pigs. A hedgehog with this might have skin issues or even lose its spines. But here is the real kicker. They can also be asymptomatic carriers. This means a hedgehog can look perfectly healthy, totally fine, but secretly be a little fungus factory, passing the infection to its owner without anyone knowing where it came from. Okay, so we've seen where these fungi are hiding, but how exactly do they make that jump to humans? And why all of a sudden does it become such a massive headache for doctors to figure out what's going on? Here's the core of the problem. When these fungi jump from an animal to a person, our bodies tend to freak out. The immune response is so intense that the rash it creates looks a lot like something else entirely, like a bacterial infection or eczema or a bad allergic reaction. And that sends doctors down the completely wrong path. And this kicks off a really dangerous cycle. The rash gets misdiagnosed, so the patient gets a prescription for something like a steroid cream. But applying steroids to a fungal infection, that is like pouring gasoline on a fire. It just shuts down the local immune response and lets the fungus run wild, making everything so much worse. And the scale of this misdiagnosis problem is just staggering. In one review of cases that came from cattle, a full 51% of patients were first treated with the wrong medicine. Think about that. More than half of them were getting treatment that made things worse, delaying the right care by an average of 41 days. But the fight doesn't end even when you get the right diagnosis. There's a growing mountain of evidence suggesting that these fungi are evolving. They're getting tougher to kill. So, what's this look like in the lab? Well, this table shows something called MICs. That's a fancy way of saying how much drug does it take to stop the fungus from growing. And just look at those high numbers for fluconazole, which is a really common antifungal. This data is basically screaming at us that the drug is becoming less and less effective against these particular species. So with all this, misdiagnoses, the wrong treatments, growing resistance, what's the solution? How do we even begin to tackle this? Well, the research says we need a fundamental shift in how we think about disease. And that shift is called the One Health Framework. It's this crucial idea that you just can't separate human health from animal health and the health of the environment we all share. It's all connected. To solve a problem like ringworm, you have to treat the whole system, not just one part of it. This quote from the research paper just nails it. To really manage these infections, we have to look at the entire ecosystem. That means human doctors and veterinarians can't be working in their own separate bubbles anymore. They have to collaborate to find the animal source and stop the cycle of reinfection. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative thought, doesn't it? When we're talking about preventing these kinds of spillover infections, these diseases that jump from animals to people, is your veterinarian's role just as critical for your family's health as your doctor's? The research we've looked at today suggests the answer is a clear and resounding yes. If you want to help us create more deep dives just like this one, please consider supporting our work. You'll find the Buy Coffee link down in the description. Thank you so much for watching.